Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. We crack the code so you don't have to.
Welcome to the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. I'm here with another great leader, Bryan Clayton, the founder and CEO of GreenPal. Bryan, welcome.
Ronnie, great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Now, I love the history of your work and the businesses that you've created. So GreenPal is one, but before GreenPal, you had another business. Tell me about that company.
Yeah, man, I started like a lot of people mowing grass. A lot of people get started in the entrepreneurial journey just cutting their neighbor's yard, and that's kind of how I got started. I started mowing grass in high school and cutting lawns through college and not have to take on a bunch of student loan debt. And when I graduated college, I decided to stick with the lawn mowing business and stuck with it and turned it into a real business, and eventually growing it to about 150 people and around $10 million a year in sales ultimately. And then it got acquired by a national company out of Texas, actually. So I spent 15 years building a lawn mowing business, just me and a push mower, to what grew to be me and 90 trucks going out every day all over Nashville, Tennessee. That was quite a journey.
So, Bryan, I'm sure your friends came to you and said, well, Bryan, why would you go to college only to stay in lawn care and cutting grass? Right?
Yeah. You know, I sometimes wondered that myself. So I was a weird thing going to business school and running a business. I was learning all of these different things about business law and managing like really big marketing campaigns and all of these things that went into running a really big business. But here I am in the trenches running a small business. And it was really hard for me because there was a big difference between the two. There was a big disconnect. And I almost felt at times like when I was in business school, I was like, this isn't how real business actually happens. This isn't how a real marketing campaign is run. This isn't how you deal with like employee issues, like literally. And so I had to separate those two. Now, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did learn a lot of things in business school that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, like how to communicate in writing and things around legal and compliance that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. But now looking back, I think you can probably learn more about business just running your own home cleaning service for a month than you would in a couple of years of business school. So it worked out for me. But at least I had some kind of acumen to make a business plan when I graduated. And
So, you know, it's fascinating that you mentioned it. In college is great, but I went to college and I enjoyed my time there. But one of the things you mentioned that I find fascinating is sometimes they kind of point you in direction, and given your experience in running the business and going to school, you recognize this specific point. But years later, I remember taking an assessment test with some organization that required me to take it. And some of the questions were like, if you had these 5 items and it listed the 5 items and you're running a business, which one would you do first? And my immediate thought was, you have to do all of them first, right? You can't put the budgeting to the side or this employee issue to the side. You have to find a way to manage through all of them all at the same time. And but they wanted a specific order, and I'm like, business just doesn't work that way. And it sounds like you found out the same thing.
Exactly, it's not the way it works. And you nailed it, because when you are running your own small business, you are all over everything all the time.
Right.
A book I love called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Wilkins, and he talks about this in that book from the standpoint of a Navy SEAL. But what he says in that book is that everything is always your fault. And as a small business owner, everything is always going to be your fault. It doesn't matter if you're running a coffee shop or a landscaping company like I had. You got to make sure the trains are running on time, and you gotta solve all 5 problems before you open that day. So there is no order of operations, a nice, neat bow on it. It is literally like all over everything all the time. So I love your example.
Now, a lot of people listening to the program, they need to know that you were Inc. magazine's top entrepreneur. You've been in Forbes, an entrepreneur in the Wall Street Journal. You've done an amazing job at representing business and business leadership and entrepreneurship, which is just incredible. But tell me so you started the first business while you were in college. Was that Peachtree, or did you start something different first?
Yeah, that was the landscaping company that I founded. I just called it Peachtree. I thought the name sounded nice. One thing I did get right at the outset of starting that company was I knew that we needed to create some kind of local brand that was just a little different than what our competitors were doing, because at the time, in Nashville was growing, and it was just starting to grow, and there was all these new projects, new shopping centers, new office buildings, new neighborhoods, and there was all of this investment happening in the region. And I knew to get a piece of that, I would have to look like a big company. And even though it was just me and like maybe a couple helpers, I knew that we needed to look like an established brand, and the website had to look like an established brand, and the letterhead and the logo and all these things had to be kind of cohesive, and so that was one thing that I did kind of learn in business school and set out to get right at the outset was to look a lot bigger and a lot more established than we were. That way, when we went to places like Atlanta and pitched $100,000 contract, and we were taken seriously on winning that business. Now, it took a long time to break into that, but at least we kind of had all of our ducks in a row before we even started.
Convincing companies, I've had a interesting set of experiences in convincing small companies that a website look is so important. And I have a lot of people say the website isn't going to sell anything. And that could be true in their specific line of business, but people do their research. So they're looking at your social media, they're looking at your website, and they're trying to establish that credibility. So what you just spoke about is fundamentally important.
Absolutely. And these things, because a lot of times you want to look at them as a business owner and say, oh, I have to do this. Oh, this is just one more thing I gotta do. And it's like, no, you get to do this. Like, imagine a time before we had things like a website and a social media account and a TikTok account and a LinkedIn account. You had no way to project your reliability, and you had no way to project what you were all about, and you kind of just had to bang your head against the wall. Now you have a way to project who it is you are and what your business is all about and what you stand for and what makes you different than your competition. So you get to do these things. You have the opportunity to do these things and invest in these things. And more and more I'm starting to notice, like, your good businesses are good at what they do, and then they're good at talking about what they do and broadcasting what it is they do and what makes them different, and packaging that up and putting it out on all of the channels and on their website, and all of that is like is congruent. So it's like, it's not just enough to be good at it. You have to be good at showcasing it. It's literally like a day or two a week needs to be focused on that.
Well, and Bryan, I talk a lot about differentiation, and so I want to set this up for you because I think what you just mentioned is so important. When I look at your industry, we're talking lawn care, and then I talk to my friends, and I say to them, I don't know if we really need another chicken restaurant or a hamburger restaurant, and then a new one comes out, and you look at what Raising Cane's is doing in that chicken space. They only sell chicken. The menu is pretty tight. They don't have hamburgers or anything else, and it's like, wow, they're changing the market in their own way. I didn't know we needed another chicken place. But you look at the lawn care, you think anyone with a lawnmower could be in the lawn care business. So how do you differentiate yourself? I know you just raised some of those elements and discussed them, but I think what you mentioned is so critical. How do you build a business in a space that might feel like it's already populated with a lot of competitors?
Yeah, that was one of the things I took away from running my first landscaping business, growing it and then selling it. And then when I started GreenPal, that was one of the through lines, was this concept of value proposition and what it is that you do different than your competitors, and really kind of focusing on that, nailing that, and then building everything around that. And the way I like to think about value proposition is you have to ask yourself, if I'm your ideal prospect, if I'm your ideal customer, why would I choose to do business with your organization versus any of my other options?
Right.
And then the answer to that question always starts with because. And it's because X, Y, and Z. And the way I think about that is because you can get this without doing that, even if it's this. And so with GreenPal and with my first landscaping company, I had to think through that. With GreenPal, it's because you can get a lawn mowing service to mow your yard today, even if your grass is 3 feet tall. And so you can't do that anywhere else. And so you have to think about it like this. It's like, if I'm your ideal prospect, I don't know, you mentioned chicken joints. I like Popeye's chicken. And
yeah.
And it's like, okay, if I'm your ideal prospect and I want chicken that day, why am I going to go to Popeyes versus anybody else? Because Popeyes is the only location on this side of town that also has that biscuit with the honey on it. Nobody else has got that. Nobody else has got that biscuit. And yeah, the chicken's good and everything, but nobody else has got that biscuit. That's why I'm going to go to Popeyes over KFC. And so you have to think about it like that. It's like, what is it that you do different than your competition? Why should they do business with you? And then that has to be a real answer. It can't be, oh, because my employees have uniforms. Because this was a one that I thought my landscaping company, we wash our trucks.
Right.
We pay we have the right licenses. We pay for the right insurance. Nobody cares about that. It's because you can solve a problem in a way that nobody else can do. And even if it's this, and so that's the way I think about it. And if you can spend a year on that, the next 10 years will be a lot easier.
Now, Bryan, tell me about the tall grass. You mentioned that really quick. Right? So you can call and get tall grass cut in the same day.
Man, you would not believe, especially with GreenPal, it is the use case for why people use GreenPal. Because they have gotten a fine from the city, or they're getting a nasty letter from their neighborhood, and it's a single mom, and she just kind of like forgot about it, and she's scrambling, and the grass is 24 inches tall, it's 36 inches tall, and she doesn't know what to do, and so they call around and leave voicemails, and people look at it and they're like, hey, I don't really feel like messing with that. Well, that's what GreenPal specializes in. It's like, okay, this platform makes tall grass short. And there's lawn care companies that want that business. And so how do we make that whole kind of problem and the solution run as easy as like ordering an Uber? That's what GreenPal's built to do. And the reason we attacked that was because nobody else wanted to mess with that. And so you have to look at where customers are being underserved or doing things different in a way that nobody else is doing it, so where you can stand out and you can create that value proposition that nobody else has.
So Bryan, I want to step back just a little. So you had Peachtree, which was a traditional lawn care service, right? You provided cutting grass and edging and lawn care in general. You sold it. The company was making about $10 million at the time, and I think you sold it in 2013. What was that journey between Peachtree and selling it and creating GreenPal? Like what was it that spurred that I want to get back into this game of starting a business again, and I don't want to retire. I don't want to go hang out at the beach in Florida.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, when I had built the first company, it was like a 15-year journey, and I was exhausted after that, and I did not want to repeat that all over again, because it was organized chaos every day. It was you have to solve all 5 problems at the same time before 7 a.m. every day, 6-7 days a week. And so I was just really beat up after I sold the business, and I didn't want to like sign up for that same journey again. And so I thought I was going to like take the little bit of money I had made selling the company and just invest it in real estate and other things, and kind of maybe just like live the good life, whatever that is.
Right.
And I tried to do that for maybe 6 months, and things got really existential really quick. There was no reason for me to get out of bed at 5 a.m. anymore. There was no reason for me to like read books and like get smarter, because a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you're working on yourself because you have imposter syndrome, and you're trying to like level up your skills, and because you're ahead of your skis, and you're trying to like backfill the abilities that you don't have. But there was no reason to do that anymore. And so I wasn't getting that kind of fulfillment out of life. And there was no reason, like there was no answer to the question, if I don't get out of bed early this morning and be ready to go with new, fresh ideas and new strategies, why does it even matter? And the answer to all those questions was the business. And so I thought, okay, well, geez, man, I got to start another business. I don't really want to. But I kind of need to start another business. And so that's what I did. And the idea for GreenPal was one that I had in the back of my head for many years. I knew that somebody was going to build an app that worked like DoorDash, but for this chore.
Right. So
and maybe
pause there for a moment. So how long did it take you between the moment you sold and you not having a reason to get up to you deciding that you needed to do something? How long of a gap was that?
Right about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Makes
about a
sense.
year. At 6 months, I knew something was wrong.
Right.
And I knew because I was getting out of shape, like physically,
Right.
it just wasn't good. It was like the business for all of my life up until that point was this forcing function that was causing me to move forward in life.
Right.
And without it, there was no thing pushing me. The marketplace is a relentless purveyor of feedback. And if you're in the
Right. True.
marketplace, always going to tell you everywhere you're coming up short.
Right.
Personally,
Right.
where you as the founder are coming up short. And so if that's in your life, it's like you have this self-correcting thing that's causing you to push forward. And I think
Right.
as human beings, we're wired to get dopamine from that.
I
And so
agree.
I needed that again.
I remember when my grandfather retired. He was a business guy as well. He was a longshoreman, then a business owner, and he operated food trucks before they were cool. We had a generator on and everything. And remember when he retired? And my position was, I don't know if he really needs to retire. I think everyone else was pushing him to retire. He was in his 50s. And I thought, no, he needs to keep going because that's what gives you life.
Right.
That energy and that feedback and that need to do something and be creative and use those skills versus just letting them kind of wither is so important,
I
right?
agree. I read a stat somewhere, and I don't know if it's true, man, but something like on average, after people retire, they're dead in 5 years.
Right.
And that's sad, and there has to be something to it. You don't have this forcing function to cause you to move forward. George Patton, he always said that if you're not gaining ground, you're losing ground.
Right.
And that's a crass way to think about life, but it is kind of true that if you're not pushing forward, if you're not taking on new challenges, if you're not solving new problems, there's something in our brains as human beings that doesn't like that. Probably
Right.
goes back to like hundreds of thousands of years ago. If you were just sitting on a beach, admiring the ocean and looking at the sunset and not worried about a thing, a tiger would come eat you alive. And so
Right.
like we're not wired to want to be discontent doing that. And it's important for us to be like congruent with that. And so just accept it and let's take on a challenge and let's get it done.
So a year later, after selling your company, what was your first step? So you get out of bed and you say to yourself, it's time to go. What was your first step in just putting together the framework for GreenPal and your new business?
Yeah, it's so funny looking back how naive and just green I was at trying to start this kind of company. I didn't know the first thing on how to do any of this stuff. I had built a blue collar business.
Right.
I had built a business where we had laborers, trucks, machinery, mechanics, and we were in the trenches, literally. And so I knew how to build that kind of business. I thought building a tech business would be very similar. And as it turns out, they were totally different. There were
Right.
some things that were similar, like I mentioned earlier, concepts around value proposition and maybe even like culture and sales that were similar, but everything else was different. And so the only thing I knew to do was just start eating the elephant one piece at a time and focusing on what were the 2 or 3 things that mattered this week that were standing in the way of getting to the next step.
Right.
And I didn't know how to build a website, didn't know how to code. I'd never done any of that. So I took a little bit of money and we paid a development shop to build what we thought GreenPal should be. A
Okay.
website where you get free lawn mowing quotes, and then you can order somebody to come mow your yard and pay them through the website. And I did that, built that, and released that. And my co-founders and I passed out some flyers all over Nashville. We got a few people to use it, and we quickly realized that man, if we're going to be in the tech business, we're going to have to learn how to build tech. And so we took another 6 months, maybe even a year, and taught ourselves how to build software.
Oh, wow.
The 3 of us, yeah. And so YouTube University, that was what we did. And went to YouTube University and just all day long learning how to code, rebuilding the website, rebuilding the mobile app, and then got another year, got it to a point where it was pretty good. And then started marketing it more, got our first 500 users, then 1,000, then 2,000, and
Wow.
slowly just methodically building it, methodically growing the user base. And now around 300,000 people use GreenPal every week for lawn mowing service.
So real quick, step back because I think this is such an invaluable lesson. So you went out and hired an expert to build your website, this development shop. What was it that wasn't quite right? Was it just kind of a disconnect in their understanding the industry? So they may have understood technology, but not the industry. What was it that forced you to go learn from YouTube how to build the software?
Yeah, I think let's go back to the chicken example.
Right.
Let's say you want to create a competitor to Popeye's chicken and you want to outsource the chicken. How are you going to do that? You know,
Right.
it's like you as the founder need to have recipes that you have experimented with, that are proprietary, that are built from the ground up. And so if technology is core to your business, you can't outsource it. Now if you have a
Right.
chicken restaurant, you can outsource the website, maybe even outsource the ordering system. You can buy these tools off the shelf and bolt them on to whatever the core is. But if the core of the product is a brand new invention, it's a brand new product that solves this problem in a new way, and at its core, it is a technology product, you got to be able to do that in-house. That is your core competency, and you cannot outsource that. And I had approached it from the standpoint of running my landscaping business, which was we're really good at landscaping. We design it well, we mow it well, we sell it well, it's predictable. And then the tech, yeah, I hire this agency to build the website. I hire this agency to help with the social media. And so I outsourced that. That was the approach I took to building GreenPal, which was totally wrong. What you don't know is that you don't know what you need to build. And the only way to figure that out is just to build a bunch of things, get people to use it, observe their behavior, talk to them, and then fix whatever's broken, and then scrap what didn't work, and then build a bunch of new things. And if you're outsourcing all of that, good luck. You'll never change order your way to success.
Right. And you never learn it. And so I think your point is right. I have this conversation all the time with business leaders. And I describe to them in framework of, let's say, the iPhone. When the first iPhone came out, it's nowhere near where we are today from the iPhone. And a lot of people think you need to get perfect on your product. And I said, no, if that's the case, then we would have had the iPhone we have today, back in 2007 when it first came out. You're always updating and improving and growing. And you're absolutely right. Some people want to wait till absolute perfection. That'll never happen. You just continue to evolve as you get the feedback, right?
Exactly. I think Reid Hoffman said, he was the founder of LinkedIn. He said, you should be embarrassed of your first product, because if you're not, it means you waited too long and you wasted a bunch of time building something you were proud of. And what you really need to do is build something that your customers love. And the only way to figure that out is to get something out there, get it in their hands, and then start learning from the feedback. So yeah, you should be embarrassed of the first version.
Right. Now, how did you start? So I want to describe what GreenPal is. So the lawn business is your core from what you do and what you know from an industry perspective. And then what you decided to do was to take your knowledge of that arena and create an online platform that connected someone that needed lawn services with someone that provides lawn services. So you sit right in the middle of that, correct?
Exactly. That's exactly what it does. And so we have kind of two customers. We have the consumers that need a lawn mowing service, and then we have people that make their living in the lawn care industry. And we have to service both of them at the same time and make both of them happy and make it where it's easier to do business on our platform than do it the old way. And so that's a balance. That's always a never-ending series of experiments trying to figure out, okay, if you change this thing over here, if you make it, really easy to cancel the same day of the appointment, what happens? Well, then that pisses off all of the lawn care services. Okay, well then don't make it don't make it easy to cancel that. Okay, now the lawn care services are happy, but consumers are pissed off. Okay, so what is the balance? So you're always doing these kinds of things to figure out what is the right balance between buyers and sellers and making it easy to conduct business. And so that's one of the fun things about building a marketplace like this, is that it's never done. You're always making it better. You're always figuring out ways to make it cheaper, faster, smoother.
Now, how was that conversation? So before you get to the people needing their lawn service, how was that first conversation with the lawn care provider when you first started? Like, did you already go to someone or know someone that would give you a shot in putting you on their platform? How was that evolution in creating that segment of your business with these lawn care companies?
Yeah, that was one of the only things we had going for us, was that I had the experience in the industry. I had ran a landscaping business for 15 years. So I at least kind of knew what the problems that these folks faced every day running their business. And we could start building to solve those problems. One problem is that you're mowing yards all day. You don't have time to go run around and give proposals all over town.
Right.
You don't have time to answer the phone because you're mowing yards, and you don't have
Right.
time to grow your business because you're mowing yards. And so we built a platform that makes it really easy for these guys and gals to quote on their phone. We collect all the information about your yard, the aerial imagery, the street imagery, the square footage that the city has on file, the
Oh,
how long has
wow.
it been since you mowed, what what is the average lawn mowing price in your neighborhood? All of this data, we collect it all up, package it into a place where the lawn care company can quote your lawn mowing in like 5 seconds, rather than having to drive out there, look at it, measure it, leave you an estimate in the mailbox. That takes him 2 hours. And so we're
Interesting.
able to turn these quotes around really quick. So that was one of the first things we attacked. And then the other thing that a lawn care service deals with is bookkeeping. It's like, who owes me money, and what accounts are overdue, and what have I billed for, what have I not billed for. It's sad, but most lawn care services get that wrong because they, at the end of the day, they're so worn out from mowing yards all day. They don't want to sit down
Right.
at the kitchen table and do bookkeeping. Well,
Right.
GreenPal does that on the fly for them, and so they get paid within 24 hours of all the work they do. So
Wow.
getting new business and organizing it and getting paid for that business are two of the main points of value proposition for lawn care companies. And then for consumers, it's like, why would they use it? Well, they don't want to leave a bunch of voicemails all over town. And then there's this weird case of the disappearing lawn guy. Like, why does
Sure.
the lawn guy just fall off the face of the earth? Let's solve that. So figuring out how we solve problems for both sides at the same time is what we do.
That is absolutely brilliant. All right. So I know there's Angie's List, which is something similar but different. If you need household projects done, you need to resolve, I think, some of that on the other parts of the construction industry, because that's brilliant.
I think about this all the time, and Angie's List is a great platform. There is a lot of, there's no end in there's no shortage of places to get names and phone numbers.
Right.
So you can go to Angie's List, you can go to Thumbtack, you can go to Facebook Marketplace, you can go to Google, and let's say you want a lawn care service, or you want a roofing company, or you want a fence builder, or a pressure washing company. There's no shortage of places to get names and phone numbers, but you still have to poll these people. You still got to call them. You still got to hope you get picked up when you call them. You still got to negotiate on the price, and then you got to hire them, and then you got to hope they show up. And so that sounds like, okay, yeah, we should Uberize all of these things. But the problem is like every one of those is a 10-year journey. Like they all look the same from the outside, and in many ways they are similar, but like the last mile of what the home painter needs, and what the roofer needs, and what the HVAC guy needs, and what the plumber needs is a totally different universe. And so we decided, okay, we're just going to be the best in the world at ordering a lawn mowing service.
Fantastic.
There's plenty of white space here. Let's focus on that.
Now, how do you evaluate those items that are important to the homeowner or your end user customer when it comes to reliability? Because you're right. Sometimes you call for a person to come help with repairing drywall and or lawn, and you're right. They might show, they might not. They might be 3 hours late, and you already scheduled your day around it. You had a doctor's appointment that you delayed, and with them coming later, you changed the doctor's appointment again. How do you evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of those lawn service companies?
Yeah, it's like the Wild West. It really is. Like, yeah, well, I hope this works out. And whenever you hire somebody to do one of these things,
Right.
and you just hope, you hire and hope is kind of how I would describe it. And part of the problem is that there is no like accountability mechanism for any of these trades. And so that's what GreenPal sets out to do, because GreenPal kind of sits as the platform where this activity happens. We can measure it. And we can understand, okay, these are the lawn care services that actually show up on time, and we assign them a rating, and we call it the reliability rating. And some lawn care companies love it, and a lot of lawn care companies hate it, because for the first time now they're being scored on if they're supposed to mow Mrs. Smith on Thursday, do they show up on Thursday? And if they love it, it makes them more money because they pump that rating up. And if they hate it, they don't do very well, and they get demoted and pushed down on the rankings in the platform. So that's one of the, I guess that's like the secret sauce of GreenPal,
Right.
is that we measure the performance of these lawn care services. So a consumer, rather than going to from like a I hire and I hope, they can go to, okay, these are actually the best lawn care services in Austin, Texas.
Nice.
And these are the ones that service my neighborhood. And actually they have 10 in my zip code, and they show up 93% of the time. Oh, and guess what? They were booked for a second and third mowing 75% of the time. So no, this is my guy.
Right.
He's about $5 more than this guy, but I want to
Sure.
go with this guy.
Right.
And or that conversation could be, this is my rental property on the other side of town. I don't care when you mow it, and I don't really care what it looks like. Just don't get me fined from the city. That's the objective. Actually, the $30 guy any day this week is fine. Let me go with him. And so just making
Right.
that match and surfacing your options is what we're built to do.
And you made me think of this as well, relative. You've been called the Uber of lawn care. And so I think of Uber and Lyft and any of the other services. As I think about it, what's kind of revolutionary, there were a couple of things that they did great, but the idea that in the old days you would have to find a taxi service.
Oof,
Right. And
brutal.
when they showed up, I don't remember how they reached out to let us know they were there. I think they would just honk the horn right back in
If you're lucky.
the old day. But with Uber now, if I'm at an airport, I can see them driving up, and it gives me the license plate number and the name of the person coming. It's like amazing for those that have never been back in the old days before then. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing in the lawn care industry, which is just phenomenal.
That was a magical experience for me the first time I ever experienced that, where you saw the car come up.
Right.
Because before that, all technology was just what I call bits, was just like zeros and ones being sent somewhere, and it was pixels on a screen, and that was it. And now with Uber, for the first time, you pushed a button and something happened in the real physical world
Right.
outside of the screen. And the first time I experienced that, it was really kind of the idea, what gave me the inspiration for building GreenPal, was that, okay, now this phone is the remote control for our life, and I can push a button here and something real happen in the real world. That was a new thing. I know it's kind of commonplace now, but 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't.
Absolutely.
Online was just online. It was just screens and nothing in the real world. And so that was a huge unlock.
Right. So you're generating $30 million a year and 300,000 customers. At what point did you realize, like, this is actually going to work? Like, you put all this investment, you went to YouTube University, and you figured out how to build your website and technology online. When did you realize, like, okay, we have a shot at scaling something really special?
Yeah, it's like almost like a video game, like different levels of a video game, and every level kind of had its own challenges, and at each level you're wondering if it's going to work or not.
Right.
In terms of getting to the next level. And so like level 1 of, is this going to work, was can I just get 100 people to use it in a week? That was it. Like, and I think it's important as a founder to be focused on some kind of metric that matters. And for us, it was the number of transactions per week, meaning like, how many buyers and sellers did we connect in a week? And then what did we do the following week and the following week? And is that number going up? And that number was 100. And it took like 2 years to get 100. And that was just brutal. But when we got to 100, I knew, okay, if we can get to 100, I can get it to 1,000, and then I can get it to 10,000, and so on. And so that was a moment. And then when we got to be profitable and we were making money, and I could take that money. And then for the first time in the building of the business of GreenPal, I had this feeling of what's called like a capital allocator. Like, money's coming in, we're making money, and then I'm putting money back out to work. I'm hiring this agency. I'm hiring this talented data scientist. I'm hiring this content designer. I'm hiring this writer. And now the money is going to make more money. And I'm building this army, this team around me that we're all rowing in the right direction. That was probably year 6. And when I had that feeling, I thought, okay, this can work, because now I can scale a team around me. So I've had 2 or 3 moments where it's like, this could work. Another weird one in the early days was my co-founders and I were working on a Sunday trying to get a new feature built. And for the first time, like 20 people signed up that Sunday, and I didn't know who any of them were. And that was a big moment, like in like month 6 or maybe somewhere in year 1, when somebody signed up and I did not know who they were. That was
Right.
big. It was like, okay, now I can build this thing and distribute it, and people who I don't know can do business with this service. And so there's been several key moments where you're like, okay, this is going to work.
That's cool. That year 6 piece is critical because I see so many people, they start what sounds like a really good idea, and they think that when they release it, they'll have overnight instant success. And even the best of ideas takes time to mature, right?
That's right. I have learned that there are no overnight successes, that it is always, it's always like 5 or 7 or 10 years, even if the thing is new. What that
Right.
founder was doing before was laying the foundation for this thing. And so, yeah, there is no overnight successes. Whatever,
What I
whatever
appreciate.
business you decide to do, plan on doing it for a decade.
Right. And I've heard that from so many people, including Steve Casey, says it's about a 10-year journey. And sometimes people get out too soon. They get out after year 2 because, one, it's hard. You're sacrificing time with family, and you're sacrificing just so much across either your partners and or your family that they stop.
That's right. And man, this is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but when you start a business, you kind of need to like have all of your personal life congruent with what that journey is going to look like. And so that means personal finances, that means personal life, that means family life. All of these things kind of need to be aligned with what it's going to take to bring that business to life. And it's going to be a 5 or 10-year thing of of not making as much money as maybe you made in your last job, and working more hours, and not being able to spend as much time with family as you wanted to. But if you can get over that hump over that 5 or 10-year period, you can build something that has unlimited upside. Whereas the other, working a job, there is some kind of limited upside.
Right. I think I heard and read somewhere you discussed the concept of a lean startup, which kind of feeds into what you were just saying. But tell me your thoughts on the lean startup. Like, how do you, if you're looking to start a business, you don't have a lot to invest. What does that look like?
Yeah, the idea of a lean startup is being scrappy. It's getting something out the door that you can get feedback on with the least amount of resources as possible, and focusing on really just 2 things at once at all times. It's building a product or service, and then getting people to use that product or service. And you're not doing anything else but that. And you are scrappy, you're lean, you're not doing stuff that doesn't matter. You're just monodically laser focused on those 2 things: building and then getting feedback, building and then getting feedback, building and then getting feedback. And Mark Cuban says, going back to like your personal life, Mark Cuban says that the least you can live on, the greater your options. So a lot of times, man, I'll get new founders talk to me and like, yeah, I want to start this business, but I need 15,000 a month just to survive. And I'm like, damn, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to be tough. And like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, dude, shit, it might be year 3 or 4 or 5 before you're making that kind of money again. And he's like, what are you talking about? And so you got to tell them that they're going to have to go backwards before they can go forwards. So that's the reality of it.
That might be one of the biggest statements that I've heard someone honestly say in a while, that you might have to go backwards because they think they can take, the big job they had and continue building on it right out of the gate as a startup business. And it just doesn't work that way. So you mentioned a few items. I don't want you to go back and discuss in detail, but I just want to reiterate the imposter syndrome. I've heard that from so many business leaders that have done exceptionally well because they think, one, how did I do that? And they think, all right, someday this is going to come crashing down. This must be a dream. And so I'm glad that you pointed that out. And then the education that you received, the YouTube University, the School of Hard Knocks, and how important that is to starting the business. You just really need to dive in. That was absolutely incredible. And what I really love about what you're doing, Bryan, is that you're helping other people that worked in your industry, the lawn care industry, that are just good, hardworking people in a blue collar type role or industry. I love it. You're giving them some tools to work with.
I appreciate that. That is why I get out of bed now, because, in the early days, the website would go down and nobody would call. Nobody would tell you the website's down. And it's like, damn, man, how long have we been down? And then now, every now and then, like one of these big like infrastructure players like Cloudflare that will go down, or AWS will go down, and it causes us to go down.
Right.
And man, when that happens, the email chat, live chat, phone call, what is going on? I have 27 yards to mow today. I got bills to pay. I've got a truck payment due on Friday. What the hell are you guys doing? I need to get back online. And so it's like, hey, I'm sorry. You know, we're waiting for this worldwide provider to come back up. And so what I take away from that is what we build matters. These people rely on it to make a living. And if we don't deliver and we don't grow it and we don't give them new tools, they're not going to prosper. And so I take that very seriously.
You know, we'll start to close and wrap up here, but that's an enormous responsibility, even if it's just not you working with other business owners, but you running a company, your own company. Let's say your company has 1,000 employees. And I've had this in the businesses I work. You get up every day thinking, I need to do the best that I can because I've got 1,000 people and their families that rely on this.
Exactly.
And that's just, it's really important. And sometimes I think leaders kind of get disconnected. And I think I saw something from you that spoke to this as well. And I used to say this, sometimes, especially when companies become big, those leaders need to get out of their office. They need to go see their clients. Yes. They need to see what their employees are doing so they can stay grounded and connected.
Yes, exactly. You have to like inspect these things in the trenches to kind of get like in touch with them. One of my favorite shows is Undercover Boss, where it's like they'll pull the CEO out of the office and like throw him or her on the front lines of like Dunkin' Donuts, and they don't know how to run the oven, and it's hilarious. And it's like, how did you let this happen? How did you let this big gap form between you and what it is you do? So be paranoid about that and go out and like get and like Sam Walton used to say, walk the store. You got to walk your store periodically to stay in touch.
So you know what's funny, Brian? You just made me think this. You remember the I Love Lucy episode where she's in the chocolate factory and can't keep up? Yes. That's what they look like on Undercover Boss. I had a friend with a big ice cream company, and he went to their manufacturing line and he was trying to package their ice cream, and he said it was out of control. He was spilling boxes, but it was a wake-up call to him.
It's such a great show. So be afraid of that moment and like just do it yourself. Do that in your business and don't wait until Undercover Boss shows up. Don't ever let that be you. And with your people and your customers, like get back in the trenches, make time to do that once a week, once a month.
Bryan, this has been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations on the success of your business and your businesses. You're doing what so many people want to do and turn their ideas and thoughts and their passion or their expertise, whether it's delivering newspapers in the old days and building a company out of it, or lawn care. And you're a great example of someone that's taken that passion and made something work well from it.
Well, thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate the kind words, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, let's absolutely stay connected. I'd love to have you back, especially as you continue to evolve. And when you look to sell, let me know. I want you back on so we can talk about that exit strategy that you developed.
Right on. I'll be glad to do that.
So if you're listening to this program, make sure that you're sharing it, you're subscribing, that you're sending it to all of your friends, and that you can learn from people like Bryan Clayton at GreenPal. What they're doing is amazing. And I know that your businesses and your career is growing just as amazing as well. But make sure you share this program with all of your friends and coworkers. Thank you for joining us on the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman.
Stay ahead of the curve. Subscribe right now. We will see you at the next episode.